how do you stop the mind from being in overdrive? And I want to talk to you today about that. It's what I end up calling basically the open loop.
This is Master Ministry, tips, tools, and truths to advance eternal effectiveness in ministry. I'm your host, Douglas Hammett. Let's move into the broadcast now.
I received a call from a friend of mine just recently, was talking with him. He's going through a difficult situation in his ministry, a man who he's tried to minister to and with, one that he really counted on, has turned on him, and they've got some misunderstandings and difficulties in their relationship. It's going to break that relationship. And in talking with him, I realized that what he's going through is what I've gone through on more than one occasion, and most any pastor or missionary who cares about his people will go through on occasion in their ministry. When personal relationship problems break down, and those problems come into a relationship, should we say, then the mind goes into overdrive. You begin looking at the situation, trying to assess what's going on. A lot of times you'll have sleepless nights. Your mind is just going so fast, and you're trying to rehearse everything that's there. In turn, during the day, sometimes you'll even have trouble focusing because you're thinking about that situation and trying to come up with a way to resolve the problem. And sadly, I have to say, often that does not happen. And people often don't understand, and certainly I don't always understand, and preachers who care about their people don't always understand. We try to connect, but it doesn't always take place. If the other person has decided somehow we're an evil person, not interested in really working through the situation, there's very little you can end up doing except torture yourself. And so the question comes, how do you stop the mind from being in overdrive? And I want to talk to you today about that. It's what I end up calling basically the open loop is what it is. It's your mind just constantly going in circles. And it's like you just can't get the answer that you're looking for, and the mind just keeps going round and round and never seems to stop. And there's two sides to this particular way to resolve this, and it's kind of like a balance, if you will. And as you weigh out the balance and try to resolve the problem, there's two sides. One is the thinking side, and that's what we're going to deal with today. And the other side we're going to take a look at next week, Lord willing. I'll spend a little time on that. And it's the answer to part two is this answer is only available to the child of God. And the first one is how we're created. It's part of our creation, if you will. Man is created in the image of God. He's created with a reasoning faculty, with the ability to think about things. And he ends up with this open loop, if you will, that ends up taking place in his mind, looking at the problem and trying to say, how do I resolve this, and what is the answer? And so I want to kind of take you through this just real quickly and keep it as brief as I can and show you an answer that I found is very helpful in helping the mind get control of everything. The first problem, we start with O-P-E-N, if you will. We start with the O. The mind is making observations. And these observations come fast and often furious. They come at us, and we're thinking about what we've said. We're thinking about what the other person said. We're thinking about reports that maybe other people have brought to us about situations. We're thinking about past issues that we've watched unfold that may relate to this and shed extra light. And those observations come so very fast, we have trouble remembering them. This is where the mind goes into overdrive, trying to remember them. And much of the thinking that goes on in the middle of the night is your mind trying to remind itself so that it doesn't forget those issues. Then second is you're trying to figure out what are the problems that are being discussed here, and you're trying to get all of those straight, but you're asking yourself the real big question, and that is, what is the real issue here? And often it's hard to even get that final real issue pinned down. It's very rare that in relationship problems that the real issue will come out at the front end or very quickly at all. And then you start looking at excuses. And this one gets interesting, because the first place the mind goes to is trying to look at your problem through the eyes of why you're not responsible. And so you begin looking at it from that view and seeing, did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Well, I didn't know this, so it couldn't be my fault. And then it goes into overdrive even further by looking at the other person and thinking, well, look what they did wrong. Look how they should have handled this. Look at how they should have responded. And instead of looking for excuses in their life, we're looking for excuses in our life, and we're looking for reasons to blame them so we can have an excuse. And that becomes very dangerous and throws us into a realm that's not even biblical. And then we go to looking for what is the next step. What should I be doing next? And we're trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I respond to all of this? So when all these things are swirling in your mind, and you've got this going on here, it becomes a circle that just comes round and round and seems never to stop, which is why the mind is in overdrive. So what I want to do is I want to take you now to how to begin to get control of the mind and make sense of all of this. We start out with the observations, and we begin to organize them. And this is what your mind's trying to do as you're laying awake at night, or as you're rehashing issues during the day. Your mind is trying to, first of all, remember those observations. That's why it's repeating them over and over. And second, it's trying to organize them in some fashion. So why not help it out by simply writing down these observations? I find that when I start to write them down on a piece of paper as observations, I can then later come back, I can connect them, I can begin to see connections that maybe I didn't before. But especially when I write those observations down, it helps take the weight of trying to remember them off of my mind. And by doing that, they're committed so that I don't lose them. They're on paper, but they're not there where I have to mentally keep on recounting them. And then later I can take and schedule time during the day and really go through and take a look at those observations and try to figure out which ones are accurate, which ones do I know really happened, which ones are reports that might have happened but may not be accurate. Those kind of things happen often in relationship issues. And I can begin to organize them in a way that might help me see them in a better light. Then second, I move to the problems, and here I'm trying to picture the problem. I want to be able to make a list of what the potential problem is, and normally there's going to be several of these. And I'm going to have all these potential problems, but I'm trying to ask myself, what is the core problem that if I could resolve this one issue would resolve probably 80% of the trouble in this relationship problem that I'm facing? And usually there is one thing that if somehow you could get to the core of it and you could find a resolution that would be agreeable between both of you, it would solve a lot of your trouble. And so by writing all of these problems down, again, I don't have to remember them. They're already committed to paper. Number two, I can then begin to ask myself, what makes sense as the core issue here? And often it'll be an insight that goes beyond what those stated problems might be. Then I begin to extract excuses. I hope you'll hang with me here on this one, because we're not just talking about excuses for ourselves. Okay, the reason I said that was because I didn't know this. I found that out later, and that's why I said it then, but now I don't agree with what I said because I have further information. Extracting excuses, okay? Very simple to do for ourselves. We can often see that. But I'm going to talk to you about empathy. No, I did not say sympathy, okay? Sympathy is where you just kind of feel bad for somebody. Empathy is where you get in their shoes and you see life from their perspective. So when you start extracting excuses, what you're going to do is you're going to try to put yourself in their shoes, understand things from their viewpoint as to why this relationship has become a problem. You're going to try to think about why they're offended, why they're upset about this issue or that issue, and you're going to try as best you can to get into their skin and be able to see it that way. Now that in turn will often set you in a place to where you can help them and help your own self through this relationship problem and get things fixed and find a resolution that will be helpful to both of you. Now it won't always work that way, because often by the time you get to this place to where the relationship is in such a deteriorated place, there's no real resolving it short of just parting company. But sometimes it can happen, and if it's going to happen, it'll be right here where you're extracting these excuses for them and understanding why they may have reacted the way they did and giving reason to that if you could. Then we go to next, and this is where we begin to navigate what is next. And usually you'll end up with 3, 4, 5 different ideas of what could I do next in this situation? What are my potential responses? And then as you begin to sort through them, one of them will come to the top as the most godly response, and number 2, the best response in this particular situation. So what you're doing is, in all of this, you are busy writing. And as you're writing these things down, your mind is being relieved. Number 2, you're getting more clarity because as you write, it allows you to think more clearly. Number 3, you're able to then put those pieces together, and by organizing them under the OPEN, you begin to shut the loop off, and you find yourself being able to concentrate on solutions and resolutions. Now, as I said, there is a second piece to this puzzle, and again, I'm talking to preachers anyway, I'm talking to Christians especially, but to preachers and people that know Christ, and this response here is one that is only available to us as children of God. And the world doesn't have this one, but we do. The first one is just the way we are made, the way we think, and anybody can use this. Very practical advice that I think you'll find will be very helpful. And if you get up in the middle of the night because you're having your mind go a million miles a minute and begin to just write these things down, go back to sleep. I think you'll find you've got some real powerful ways of dealing with this now. And join me next week for part 2 as we take a look at how to resolve this problem of the open loop cycle. All right. God bless.
Thanks for listening. You know your ministry does not have to stagnate or die. If you want to get out of the box and into the book, get some help right now. Give me a shout at pdhammett@gmail.com. We'll discuss what you need and recommend a course of action. Get in touch with me. You can also find tips, tools, and truths to advance eternal effectiveness in ministry and make an eternal impact at masterministry.com. Thanks for listening. Now let's go make a difference.